So we have a lovely surprise for this month. So you guys know that we have Vivanterre wines, but I actually have Cedric from the Vivanterre team with me today to do the tastings. So I don't even know if you know the Cedric, but getting these wines for us has been about a year in the making. So I've been working with y'all for a while to actually get some of these and set this up. So we're super excited to have it. And we have all the wines, but for our club members, most of them are going to be getting the orange, which we'll talk about. And then our red club members will be getting the Gamay, of course. So we're excited to just kind of learn a little bit more about that from you. And then we'll do some tastings and give some recommendations for the club members and just learn a little about it. So first, I'd just love to hear a little bit about you, and then we can jump into Vivanterre, all the partners, et cetera, from there.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for having me, and thanks so much for carrying the wines. I know, like you said, the process has been long. The circumstances around getting the wines in the States the last couple of years, the first 2 years, has been more difficult than we ever imagined. So
I'm
thanks
sure.
for your patience. So I'm Cedric. I am my title is the wine director of Vivanterre. My other previous title was a wine director of Madison Park. I was a wine director there for 5 years. I've now since moved into a different role within the company that owns Madison Park. I'm a wine lover. I love everything about wine. I love talking about it. So please feel free to tell me to quiet down if I'm going too long.
I say the same thing. Like my friends are like, "You're good. Like actually, we're done with
Yeah.
the wine talk now."
It's like funny at a party at the beginning, and then for after a while,
Yeah, and
people
then
are like,
they're like, actually, we've drank enough now that we're done with this part.
yeah. And so my background is much more in very classic wines, but I think especially with the catalyst of this project, but maybe because of my interest in wine in general, I've taken a real interest in all wines, including those that lean on the natural side, as Vivanterre does. So Vivanterre is a collaboration project. And is a really fun group of people, which is why I ultimately decided to get involved. The people are super interesting and really amazing to work with and to learn from. So on one side, so I'm sort of like squarely in the middle, clearly not the most important, and if anything, the least important, but in the middle, and I'll illustrate why I say that. On one side, you have Patrick, who's our winemaker, who lives in France. He's the one who actually does basically all the hard work. That is the winemaking. If anyone has ever gone to harvest or worked in a winery, it is backbreaking, hard, physical labor that when you're actually the actual winemaker is actually like also a lot of science. So not only backbreaking labor, you're also like really using your brain at the same time. On the other side
You
of that,
casually say Patrick, and like this is like a very famous natural winemaker.
sure.
Y'all are already besties, but like it's very hard to get wine from Patrick, period, in the US. So that's why it was also really exciting to get something from this project, because he is so like famous and hard to pin down because his stuff is amazing.
Yeah. So Patrick Bouju is the winemaker. He is the proprietor of Domaine La Bohème in Auvergne, France. He makes insanely delicious wines. I think the wine he's most famous for is maybe the Festahar, his
Yeah.
Gamay. But what really was the linchpin for me, we tasted when I first went to the winery and spent some time with him and my other partners. We tasted some Muscadet and some Beaujolais. Literally, the Beaujolais that we tasted, called Super B, is the catalyst of why we have a red wine.
Yeah, I love that wine. I know that one.
Yeah, it was amazing. And as somebody who runs a fancy restaurant, Beaujolais seems like it's out of place, but I love Beaujolais. And so we at 11 Madison Park have like 75, maybe more SKUs of Beaujolais on the list.
Wow.
And varying ages and varying styles. And so I was really excited to drink it. And every time he opened a bottle, we took a tank sample of the things he had fermenting. Everyone was like, "Wow, this wine is amazing." And we were at the dinner. We were talking about like what we wanted to do and what the project looked like. And I was like, we should definitely make some red wine. And so that's how the red evolved. And then on that trip, we also tasted what's called M, which is his Muscadet, which when we talked about making wine in the second year, I was like, can we get some of that Muscadet that you're making? Because that would be amazing, because that wine is also delicious. So that's a little bit of background on that. So my other partners are Rosie and Max Assoulin, who run the eponymous Rosie Assoulin fashion company. Very beautiful, creative, insane clothes. I know nothing about fashion, so
Me neither.
that's like literally all I got to offer on that.
Yeah.
I just know the clothes are beautiful, and Rosie is creative, and the way her mind works is not the way my mind works at all, as a positive. And so working with her has been really, really amazing, and I've learned so much just on creative processes and thinking out of the box, and it's just been a really awesome process to go along through with her. So that's a little bit of background about myself. And so like I said, I'm in the middle. Rosie and Max on one side. I say this to them, so I'll say it to everyone. They don't know a lot about wine. It's actually insane how much they've learned, and not being their background, like how much they actually know about wine now. I'll take credit and say that at least 30% of what they've learned is directly from me. But they really spent the time to like really like dive in and learn. And so I translate their creative ambition and thoughts to Patrick, both into more technical wine talk, but also into French, because Patrick doesn't speak
Right.
a lot of English. I speak French-ish. I'm mostly fluent, kind of. And so that's why I say that I'm like squarely in the middle of the project.
Nice. And how did you guys get hooked up with, how'd you get hooked up with basically all those sides? Did you already know each other, or?
Yeah, so I say it in the most comical way possible. It's all through SoulCycle.
Really? Oh my gosh, that is an amazing story. I'm so glad I asked.
Yeah. So my amazing wife is an avid fitness junkie, and so is Rosie's sister. And so between their friendship, the circle kind of grew, and then Max and Rosie were around, and we got to know each other. And then they like kind of pestered me for, we'll call it a couple years, before I would have finally agreed to join the project. I was reluctant. I know the amount of hard work that something like this would take, and I just wasn't sure I was ready to take on the responsibility and the work and whatnot. And so I was very reluctant to get involved. And then I think after spending a weekend in France with Patrick Bouju and his partner Justine, and then Max and Rosie, my sort of thought had always been the best part of the wine world has always been the people that I get to meet, and the opportunities that those people present. And I wouldn't be being true to myself if I didn't at least explore this further. So that's kind of how it happened.
And then who knew Patrick, or did you guys just reach out to him?
They Max and Rosie, a friend of a friend of a friend sort of situation that we just kind of, and I think in the wine world, and I can speak to this personally, and I'll put my thoughts into Patrick, is you meet a lot of wine people all the time, and it's like very insular, and it's just like one wine person after another, and it's sort of like I'm like, is there anyone else in the world that's not involved in the wine trade that I can actually talk to? And so I think Patrick was very excited that Max and Rosie came from a very different background, and their, like I said, their creative process and their outlook on things. I think he was excited to potentially collaborate with someone that wasn't specifically from the wine world, and that's kind of how that happened.
Awesome. And I'll just put in a little caveat here too, because like it's interesting. I've been doing like a lot of interviews lately about like the clean wine movement, and then there's all this discussion of like celebrity wine, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the first things I talked to Max about when we first talked to y'all was that I was like, I just think that like y'all are just like such a great example of like how stuff like that can be done right. Like y'all aren't part of the clean wine movement. That's just kind of like a secondary thing, but like it kind of goes hand in hand with like the like celebrity aspect of things. And I just think it's like so important, because like I basically was like, there's like a little checklist, and like y'all just kind of made the checklist of doing things right, like ensuring there's like people from the wine world that like truly know what they're doing, naming who and where the wine's always coming from so that it's traceable back, and then just like being incredibly transparent about how it's being made, what's going into it. And then of course add the sexy bottle and all the other stuff that natural wine's super famous and hypey for, and like that's just like a great combination versus masking any of those things or trying to act like it's something different than it is. That's just like I feel like where it falls off of the wagon of like being a part of the natural wine community. And I feel like y'all just did such a great job with that, and that's why like y'all have had such great adoption like in the natural wine world, and it makes me excited because I feel like there's a lot more space for that, and this is just like a really good example of it.
Totally. I thank you for saying all that, because I think all of those things were important. We wanted to make something legitimate, and I'm opinionated. I'm a sommelier, so I have thoughts.
Yep.
But the clean wine movement is something totally different
Yeah.
than the natural wine thing, and it's just about like buzzwords that don't mean anything. And I kind of think the term natural wine doesn't really mean anything,
Yeah.
but the clean wine like actually doesn't mean anything because I don't know, and the celebrity wine thing, and Rosie, and the reason I got involved is because it was very innocent. Like they were just like, we love this wine, we want to be involved and we want to be creative and like make something. And it wasn't about like trying to like intrude into this world that didn't belong in or whatever. And so working with them that way has been really important. And then the ethos behind the project is that everyone is a partner, right? Like no one's getting a paycheck from this project. I mean, that's not totally true. Patrick gets paid because, like I said,
He's doing all the work.
He does all the work, and the responsibility, especially with COVID, has really fallen on his shoulders. So he gets paid, but like I don't get a salary. Max and Rosie don't get salaries. Like it's not about making money for us. It's about like just really having something that's really fun and delicious that we can share with people. And the only way we can do that is by having a business. And so,
Yeah.
you can't just make 5 cases of wine and share with your friends in France.
Yeah.
Logistics of that just aren't possible. So.
Well, I think it's just nice too. Like, I think it just shows what's possible. And I think that it's a way, like, I think that I assume you'll agree, like in the wine world, like, and you kind of already mentioned this, like, it can be very, like, we're all just saying the exact same thing, talking to the exact same people. And like, I think it's important to involve people outside of the wine world, in the context of like bringing new people in, as you said earlier, like they don't know that much about wine. And like, as long as they don't come in and say, hey, actually, I know everything, like as long as everyone's willing to learn, there's so much to learn from other people outside of our space as well. So I think that that's just like a really great combination. All right, so it is 9 a.m. and we are drinking wine. 9:30 now.
9 a.m. What's better than that?
Welcome to the wine world. If you want to drink wine at 9 a.m., this might be the industry for you, or you might need help.
Yeah.
So most of the people in the club this month are going to be getting the orange contact, which has always been my favorite. Well, y'all just got the 2 new ones, and I did serve the pet nat when I was at Niche, which I thought was lovely too. But I've had a really, especially around this season, like I'm very into my orange wines. So I'm super stoked to have it. So give us a little background on it, then we'll do some tasting and we'll talk about some pairings.
Yeah, so the orange wine, the contact this year labeled SGS for Sylvaner, Gewurztraminer, and Sauvignon Blanc is the catalyst project. The beginning of the project the idea was to make only orange wine. And then through basically my insistence, we started with red. And then because that went well, we've actually layered in a couple other cuvées that hopefully people will get to try that we won't talk about today. But the contact or orange wine is the nature of the project. So the Gewurztraminer and the Sauvignon Blanc get some skin contact about 3 weeks. And the Sylvaner is direct press. So it's just, very high acid, kind of very tense juice that's blended together. All the wines are fermented separately and aged separately. And then this was blended at the end of March, as was the first vintage. Patrick, the winemaker, he's in charge of all that. He says he decides when the juice is ready. I will say I have not been there for blending. That is the one thing that I really am looking forward to doing. Hopefully going this year at the end of harvest during fermentation, and then going next year to blend the 2021 vintage. But I'm at best an advisor. Patrick is the genius, so doesn't need my opinion, as I think everyone will see in the wine. I think the Gewurztraminer really drives.
I was thinking that too.
Gewurztraminer is, if I had to list like my top 20 grapes, I would have to probably make like 15 lists before I got to Gewurztraminer.
Yeah, I know. But sometimes with a little skin contact, it just changes it completely.
I will honestly say that this is the best version of Gewurztraminer I've ever had, and I think makes it really food friendly. And I think the combination of the 3 grapes really works. I think one of the things that's been interesting in the natural wine world for me is that once you sort of take away all the rules, right? Like we're making a Vivanterre, you can do whatever you want, and then so when you get onto that train, like you can do whatever you want. So blending some Sauvignon Blanc from the Loire Valley into some Gewurztraminer, Sylvaner from Alsace actually just makes total sense. And at the end of the day, we're not shooting for typicity or to make vineyard specific wines. We're just trying to make some really delicious, easily drinking, wine. Like like we're
zero
not.
zero, right? Because he doesn't add sulfur.
Yeah, 0-0 for
So
sure.
that's
There's no chemicals in the vineyards. There's there's nothing. I mean, literally, there's nothing. No added sugar, obviously, and then no sulfur for sure. So yeah, so like I said, the goal isn't to make like Alsatian Gewurztraminer. The
right.
goal is to make, some delicious wine. It's orange, and it's great. So.
Yeah, I will say my favorite orange wines are almost always Alsatian grapes, just generally like Sylvaner. I think my favorite orange wine of all time is a orange Sylvaner that we had from one of our friends in Alsace a while back. But like, I just love them. I think they make amazing orange wines and Gewurz, just like you said, like by itself, I'm like, you're fine for like foie gras and like once a year, but like this context is just so wonderful.
Totally. And then the combination of, because Gewurztraminer, if you've ever had it on its own, is kind of like fat and flabby.
Yep.
And the combination of Sauvignon Blanc and especially Sylvaner, that is, it's like the opposite. Makes this wine has structure, and with the skin contact has a little bit of tannin, and it like really kind of like puts everything together into like one focused thing. And I think this actually has a lot of different food options. I think you really with normal Gewurztraminer, you really need something like really fatty, really rich. And I think this is great for like summer salads. I think sushi, if you ever get sushi delivery, you need something to drink with it. I think this is really good. It has a lot of that kind of exotic ginger spice.
Yeah,
It comes from the Gewurztraminer for sure, but I think with classic sushi, I think that it can be a really good match too. And then you're still in that like spicy ethnic food world that can kind of, it's like hard to pair, and you're like maybe it needs like a sweet wine or like off dry Riesling, and I think that this really kind of goes well, especially when you go into like meat dishes in those worlds. Having something that's a little bit of skin contact and a little bit of tannin, but still white, actually works a little bit better. So
yeah, I was thinking like bibimbap or something would be like so nice, or something like this, or I don't know, something that goes down like not too spicy, because like it's not, it doesn't have like a ton of RS or anything like that, but just a little bit of spice, like it's still, I feel like, going to work with that. So
exactly. Yeah.
It's so good. I'm so excited for you guys to try this. It's, I mean, I'm also incredibly biased because, like I said, this is like, it's like y'all made this wine for me. This is the type of orange wine like I personally love. And that's why you guys, everyone in the club probably also loves them, just because they're constantly getting wines that I pick. And literally, what do I pick all the time? Beaujolais and Alsatian orange. And I apologize for it. Not at all, because I think they're delicious. And I think y'all do too.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's amazing. And like I said, like, I think orange wine is an amazing, food friendly, can navigate a lot of different things that it really works. So.
And I think the other thing, we'll just talk about that has nothing to do with the rest, the wine itself, but like, we're talking about design here too. Like, who doesn't want to like bring this to a party? Like, it's so orange, which is so fun when you're trying to introduce someone to orange wine. B, I would say it's a really good introductory orange wine because it's not a scary one. Like, it looks like, if you've never seen orange wine before, you'll be like, whoa, like that's kind of weird, but it doesn't actually have like, any like incredible tannin or like weird phenolic bitterness or stuff that's going to turn someone off from orange wine completely. Like, I think it's a really good, gateway drug into the orange wine world. And it's just so cutely designed too, with the little topper and this. So
I couldn't agree more with everything you just said. And like I said, the ethos of the project isn't to make really serious, like whatever wine. Wines are there to be shared with friends and to like sort of guilt-free cork pulling, and so they're not super expensive, and and yeah, I think a lot of orange wine can be difficult, I think is a good way to put it. And ours is not so difficult. It's like pretty easy to drink, and you don't need food. It doesn't need like a complicated explanation. You're just like, yeah, it's pretty delicious. So.
Oh, last thing, what would you like chill it to if you had a fridge, or just generally if you put it in your fridge, how long would you leave it in there?
So I'm maybe this is hopeful thinking. I would put it in the fridge for a couple, like get it whatever temperature your fridge is at, get it to that temperature. So 3, 4, 5 hours, or put it on ice for half an hour, 45 minutes. And then I would just put it on the table and then not put it back in the fridge. Obviously, if you're drinking alone, maybe that's not the right way, but the wine's not meant to sit around for a couple hours. So share it for your friends, drink it, and it'll change in the glass. And if it does take a couple hours, it definitely gets better. But this is a wine that's meant to be drank cold for sure.
That's exactly what I'll always say with most orange wines. I'm just like, unless it's like, super light extraction or whatever, or like very heavy, I'm always like, chill it and then just like don't drink it all at once, like try it, like just like consciously try it as you go through, because you're going to get new things as you're drinking it, and that's really fun. So I think couldn't agree more. All right, anything else on the orange?
I think that's it.